Hey team, happy Tuesday. If you are listening the day that this drops, happy literally any other day of the week that it might be if you are not. I'm so excited to get to chat with you all again today. And I've been thinking about this topic for a while, actually, since episode 10 with Liz Higgins. We did that crossover, Liz of the Millennial Life podcast. And she introduced me to obsessive comparison disorder. And it's just been hanging out here in the back of my mind since then. And I don't know. I feel like it's definitely something that we need to talk about. And I can definitely say for sure that this is going to come up again when I have guests on. I'd love to have this discussion with other people as well and see how it's impacting people's lives, but more importantly, obviously being solution focused. What do we do about it? How do we stop? So they talk about obsessive comparison disorder actually being a very close cousin to obsessive compulsive disorder. Anxiety, intrusive thoughts, excessive worry can be debilitating. Sounds familiar, right? Obviously it's a different thing entirely in other ways, but it does have that kind of, it smacks of the same stuff. And I thought that was really interesting too. I was doing some research for today's episode and saw Paul Angone had said that obsessive comparison disorder is the smallpox of our generation. And I thought, pervasive. It's everywhere. It's omnipresent. Yeah. I see that. And obviously not like the physical bumps that you get on yourself, but just how I just thought that was so interesting, the way that he phrased that. One of the quotes that I made sure to write down, like having to run outside to light up a cigarette, our addiction to comparing is uncontrollable and killing us. And I thought about that too. I thought, yeah, think about like, I really make an effort these days to not pick, like I pick up my phone first thing in the morning just to make sure no one's died. Like, has my phone exploded? Is something major happening? Do I need to jump into action? And I talked about that on a podcast earlier, those of you who are caught up, where I had a friend out in New York who needed something and it was kind of serious, and it was 6:30 in the morning and I was and my husband Austin was like, man, you were on the phone. I'm like, well, I can help with this. Like there's something that someone needs something from me and they're on East Coast time and I can help. And I had the time and I did that. But generally speaking, I try not to get on my phone first thing because that's not how I want to wake up first thing in the morning. That's not how I want to spend my time. Like, what's going on in other people's lives? Like, let me focus on me. Let me get my house in order. Let me spend some time with my loved ones who are physically closest to me, and then see what I can do in the rest of the world. And again, generally exceptions can and will and have been made. But so that's a goal for me. But I do just think about how like that's the first thing that we do. We get up, we pick up the phone. What are we doing? We're checking our email. Okay, well, maybe there are not so many opportunities for comparison there. Do you get on Facebook? Do you get on Instagram? Do you get on the TikTokers, right? Like, where are you going? What are you doing? What are you looking at? What information are you consuming? And I just think it's so interesting. Like, it's so dangerous. And I am so guilty of it. So that has been one thing for me. So I always like to talk about kind of defining things, right? So just with obsessive comparison disorder, I'm going to try really hard not to call it OCD because I'm not talking about obsessive compulsive disorder. And I feel like that's the more like people know that as OCD. So if I do, I apologize. I will try to catch myself. Just like evaluating your thoughts and compared with somebody else or your abilities. Like, what can I do? I can do this, but other people can do this and that and that. And so I'm not good enough, right? Instead of just like, I don't know, I just keep having these little babies running around here. I just keep thinking about like all of the stressors of life and all of the things that they're going to have to endure. And they're going to have to, because they're going to have to learn lessons. I can't magically come behind and get them on every sport team and make them a starter and get them an A+ in everything. I can't do that for them. They're going to have to learn on their own. As much as I can be here to support and help where I can, I'll kick the soccer ball around with them and practice juggling skills and help them with their math homework and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I can't sit in the room and take the tests for them. So they do have to be able to learn. And then also trying to kind of like how can I mitigate certain things and how can I let them, and obviously everything's going to be a very individualized situation. Everything's going to be very like, what's good for my son is not going to work for my daughter and vice versa. And what's good for my son this week isn't going to work for him next week or in a year. You know, it's all over the place. So I've been thinking about it a lot though, of like, just being okay with being yourself. And I know that sounds so cheesy and cliche, and like it is, and I know, and like, just be you. But like, you're so perfect. Like, everybody comes onto this earth for a reason, whether you believe in a God of your higher power, of your understanding, if you believe in like the universe provides, right? Like, if you don't believe in any of that, I don't know. But like, I feel like we're all here for a reason, and we all bring something. And I'm not saying like whatever you're doing is perfect and don't aspire to do anything else or anything more. Like, obviously, I'm sitting here doing a YouTube channel and a podcast because I think I can provide more than what I was doing before that. And I am doing the things that I'm doing to learn and be better. I think that those are two different things though. Like, I can do the best that I can do because I want to learn and do something, versus I'm not doing enough because somebody else is doing it, or because whatever that might be. So I think that's it. I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast. They were doing with her two sisters, talking about Atlas of the Heart, her new book, which I haven't read yet because I haven't finished. What is that one? Daring Greatly. I haven't finished Daring Greatly yet. So I promised myself and Austin, not to his face, which he'll hear it. Hey, Austin. But I'm like, don't buy another book until you finish this book that you haven't read. So that's where I am with that one. But I did still go ahead and listen to the Atlas of the Heart podcast because I don't know, I just wanted to hear what they were talking about. And they were talking about like seeking validation, right? And I am so guilty of this. And I'm so guilty of it in like my mom text friend thread groups. I'm so guilty of it. Like, I'm upset about this, and I need everybody else to be upset about it with me. And it's like, no, maybe I am upset, and I have every right to be upset, but I don't need other people to back it up. Like, if you're upset about something, you take the awareness of that. Where are you going with it? What are you going to do with it? What new boundaries can you set? What reframing? Are you thinking about it in the wrong way? I've told you this, talked about this before. Like, sometimes I get upset about things and I don't say anything because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm being the most rational, logical right now. Like, I'm not using my wise mind, using more the emotional side than the logical. Yeah. So, but that's what they had been talking about. I was like, wow, that really rang true for me, as like that validation. Like, are you talking to somebody about something because you feel like you need to talk it through? Like, what can my next steps be? How can I be solution focused? How can I be goal oriented? How can I make a change based on this information I have? Or are you just sitting and whining? And I've caught myself doing that, especially like I said on my mom groups, of like, am I just whining about something that's going on, or am I actually genuinely seeking, like, and then what should I do? And I think that's something for me that's been really on my mind as well, as like seeking that validation from others. Is that why I'm doing activities? Is that why I'm doing things? Like, my abilities, I want to just provide help and support and love and a good space for people. And not because, gosh, if I try to compare myself to Brene Brown, right? Like, she's got a PhD and I want a PhD, and like, she's, full-time professor. I'd love to be a full-time professor. And obviously I would keep my private practice too. But I think there's aspirational, as long as it's in a healthy way. And then there's just, I'm never going to be as good as somebody, so why even try? Or just continuously like this negative self-talk that we have, like beating myself up about the fact that I'm never going to be as good. And again, what does good mean anyway, right? Like, you're obviously here listening or watching what's going on right now. So you think I'm doing something right. And that's really nice. And I'm so happy that you are here and we're in this space together. And that's really all that matters, right? Is show up and do what you love, right? So I actually looked at a study. It was 2016, which is crazy because I think about 2016 as like last year. It's not, it's 2022. So it's a while ago. So it's a little older study. But it talked about how millennials have the highest rate of mental health concerns than any other generation in history. Now, I do want to put the caveat in here that we're also talking about it more because we have spaces where we allow people to say like, I'm not okay. Whereas before, I mean, you just had to get on with it. We talked about that with Courtney in the adulting in the Oregon Trail generation. Like, our parents, their parents, you just got up and did it. That's it. Like, you just got, oh, you're sad. Oh, you just came home from war and you have, what did they call shell shock, right? Like, get over it. And people unfortunately just had to do that. And I do feel like there's some mitigating factors there, right? So yes, we do have more diagnoses. We did studied, right? Their data backs it up, but our generation does. But like, also we're talking about it more. And I think that's I want to celebrate that piece of it. Right. So, but we talk about that, it's because there's just so much more opportunity for us to be comparing ourselves on social media. Right. Like, it's the second you get on Instagram, even if it's not somebody that you follow, even if you perfectly curate your feeds to only people who you know or love or know are being honest, which I don't know how you can know that ever, but if you're very careful about curating that, that's fine. But then what about these random ads that pop up? And somebody sent me a video once where this woman was modeling like running tights, sports leggings, and she was well fit to begin with, right? She looked like she could crush a walnut with her thighs. I mean, she looked in fantastic shape. And then they shoved these butt pads into her pants. And I was like, we are literally selling something that's not, I can't aspire. I mean, I can aspire to walk around with butt pads in my, I'll know my secret desire is to be a drag queen. So I can definitely learn how to pad and do that. But that's not even, and she's in such good shape. So like, what does that even say to her as a person? Right. Like, even her who is being paid to model these things and is in insane shape. Like I said, she looked so strong. She was doing pull-ups in the video. It was a video of them shooting the ad. And I thought, what are y'all telling her? Like, oh, your butt doesn't look good enough in these pants. Let me help you with that. It's so crazy. So even the person who's in it is being told that she's not good enough in comparison to what they want her to be. And then we're watching the finished product, if you're not watching this behind the scenes and you don't know that's not her real tush. And it's like, I thought that was so crazy and just made me sad. It made me sad. I was like, oh, can't we just and also wear the pants for the flat-butted girls. Hello. No, I'm kidding. I have more than enough access to the things that can cover my body just fine, but I thought that was funny. Yeah. So, and another thing too, I don't know. I don't like to air my dirty laundry on social media. I've talked about this before too. I like to share my information because we live in the middle of nowhere with people we don't really genuinely know at all. We have like a handful of close people out here, which they are wonderful and amazing. But otherwise, the rest of the people that I've known for the 36 years of my life are all over the place. So I like to post those things because I have two children who I think are special, magical, and amazing. And I want people to be able to feel like they're a part of their lives, even though they physically can't be, especially in this pandemic. And so I don't post like my son had a meltdown yesterday because we tried to take away his, like I could, because he does. Oh my gosh, because he's 2. But that I'm not gonna post that. So if anybody were to be like, oh, Meg's children are so perfect and they're always so cheerful and they're so funny and and it's like, well, I hope nobody's coming and looking at that. I hope that you're just seeing like, here's a cute video of him climbing. Here's a cute video of my daughter clapping. And like, oh, I taught her that. Did I just impart wisdom? Chandler Bing. Yeah. So I don't try to air my dirty laundry anyway. I mean, unless something kind of funny or whatever, but I've noticed too, there's just like this one-upsmanship in conversations and that I have with some people. And it's like, oh, my son did this. And it's like, oh, my son did this. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's really cool. Did you see that? Or you did see and you don't care? Or you need me to know that my kid is not as good? Like, why are we comparing? Like, I don't, it's so much, it's frustrating. And like, there are times where I just kind of take a step aside a little bit, take a step back from some of those text threads or some of those people on my social media platforms, or I've actually unfriended some people too. I'm just kind of like, every time I try to post something, you have something to say, and I don't feel like it's encouraging or nourishing in any way. And I've talked about it before. You all remember when I talked to Jessica Skinner, and I was like, thank you for letting me know that I shouldn't put a Flissat table right next to a banister that overlooks into a 2-story drop because my son is a climber. Like, thank you for like, hey, I don't know if you thought about this, Meg. Maybe not the best idea. That's really helpful. But if you're just like, well, my son can spell his name. Isn't this cute? And then you're like, well, my son's already been able to spell his name and he's younger than yours. And it's like, what? Is that the energy that you want to put in this world? Oh, it's stressful. So I've really worked myself to be, first of all, self-awareness. Self-awareness is key, right? We talked about that. That's the first key. You know what's going on. You're aware of it. What are you doing with it? Then we go on to the next piece, which is that intentionality. What am I going to do with it? Where do I want to go from here? How do I want to function within my own space? What sort of energy do I want to bring to myself, to my family that I live in the same house, to my social media feeds, my little platforms? What am I going for with these conversations? How am I helping to build other people up? Because in my mind, that's my goal in life, right? Like the more things you enjoy in life, the more joy you get out of life. So, and I usually say that about food because I'm kind of a picky eater, but I'm always trying to expand the palate. Although I'm like a 7-year-old, I could eat Taco Bell on a Tuesday afternoon and be happy as a clam. But yeah, so like just happiness. Like I want to see the things that other people's kids are doing. And I don't want to worry like, oh, unless there's an actual genuine problem, in which case I will talk to my child's pediatrician. I don't care that your kid started walking before my kid, or that your kid can do, I'm not going to give examples, but you literally run the list of all of the check boxes you're supposed to have by certain times and certain dates and whatever. And it's like, I'm not worried about it. I can't worry about it. I can't take on the stress of that. There shouldn't be any stress around it because you're not a doctor telling me that my kid's doing something wrong or missing out on some sort of key piece. And so I am divorcing myself of the comparison. I will look at the photos. Now I will definitely live vicariously through your trip photos. So those of y'all who I am following, please continue to share where you're going, and I will covet your travel, but but in terms of basically everything else, like I can't bring that on anymore. And I want to encourage everybody else to recognize, like, take a step back and think throughout the day. I know our phones can give you like a weekly update of how much time you spend on each app. And if that's something that's important to you, or perhaps you haven't ever noticed before, maybe go look at that and see like, oh, wow, I'm on Instagram 10 hours a week. Okay. And then reflect, like, what does your Instagram experience look like? Right? Like what are you looking at? Who are you looking at? What's being told to you? What are the narratives that are going on? And like really focus on, is that content that I need to be consuming? Is that the energy? Is that the vibe that I'm going for? Right. I was doing, like I said, doing some research for this episode and talking about, I found Ryan Dumont, who had been diagnosed with OCD and also had issues with comparison. And his quote was, one of the greatest reliefs you can find from the anxiety that comes with social comparison is doing an activity you're passionate about. And so I know my last week's episode was talking about being in a place of feeling like an imposter syndrome coming up on teaching my course, which by the way, I did last week and had so much fun and can't wait for this next coming week. I've done it now. I can no longer say I've never taught a college course, so I'm not an imposter, literally. And also I do know what I'm talking about. So that's what's exciting for me, is that I can go in, and in prepping for my course, for example, to kind of piggyback off of last week's episode, like in prepping for my course, I feel really excited and energized by not only doing the things that have been, part of the curriculum already, but then, okay, kind of getting into that, like, well, this links to this study. Well, let me read a little more about that study. Oh, and that links to this conversation. And I want to talk about that. And I want to make sure I bring up that in class next week, and And I think it's really fun. And that's something that I'm passionate about. And so I'm not saying I'm the best professor in the world. I've done one class. And so it's a fact that I'm not, but I can tell you that I'm going in with energy and passion and excitement and an open mind to teach and learn. And I think that that's really a lot of it. That's what you can do, right? That's the best you can do, is your best. And I do feel a relief from that anxiety by focusing on my energy, on my passion, right? So just different ways of thinking about comparing. So I already talked about, like, you've got statistics on your cell phone that tell you exactly where you're spending your time on your cell phone. And I know some of you might be on a laptop or an iPad or whatever. But for example, so you're like looking for those specific triggers. What are the things that have that little monster waking up? What are those things that you say, like, where is that coming from? Oh, well, when I go on Instagram and I see fitness models, and then I judge myself for having my C-section overhang and whatever that might be for you. you got to figure out where it's coming from. So that could be something to look into, or just reflect, just sit and be intentional about reflecting on perhaps where it's coming from. And then remembering always, I talk about in solution focus is what are your goals? What are your goals? Are they, I talked earlier this week on one of my reels about like Emma Lovewell talked about making your goals so fantastical that it makes other people chuckle. And I think that's wonderful, right? Because they're your goal, but is it specific to you? Is it something that you're passionate about? Is it what's motivating you? Then yeah, that is absolutely where you should be putting that energy, not in being like somebody else, but because I want to do this for me, for me, Alaska. Anyway, can't say her last name on this podcast. One of my favorite drag queens. Anyway, talking about drag queens a lot today. Oh, you know why? Because I watched RuPaul's Drag Race this morning while I was getting ready. Episode 3 of this season. Yeah. Anyway, talking about gratitude. I know I've done gratitude journaling a lot with a lot of groups that I've done in psychoeducation courses. And sometimes people are like, oh, well, no, it's not about toxic positivity. We've talked about that and we will talk about it again. It is not about ignoring all of the things that are wrong. It's taking a moment of gratitude and focusing on that, committing yourself to being in a space where you're looking at your goals, you're looking at where you are, you're excited about that, and you're excited about where you can go in gratitude. Because when it's, I don't have this and I don't have that and I don't have that's when we have a lot of these problems of comparison versus look at all the things I can do. Look at all of the things I can provide for other people in an appropriate and healthy, like a boundaried way, right? If it's helpful for you, write down all the stuff that you've done. Hey, I'm feeling down on myself again. So make your little gratitude journal, make it on your Cricut, get your glitter out, get your, whatever you want to do. Write it down. Sometimes it's nice to just like, yeah, I did that. And I did that too. Like, it's all about that positive thought and talk, right? Of saying like, this is something that I have done, right? Some of you may be competitive. Maybe somebody may be a little too competitive. I don't know what that looks like for you. Everyone's different. Embracing competition can be really helpful. And like being excited about trying to be the top of something is great, right? So that's fine, but it has to be intentional. It has to be with self-awareness. It has to be healthy. So looking at competing with other people, me comparing my child's achievements, not a healthy competition, not interested, not participating. I am running in the opposite direction of the trauma Olympics. Olympics are coming up, which the Olympics are some of my favorite things in the world. Winter Olympics, Shaun White's coming back for another, so excited. Anyway, I love snowboarding. Right? No trauma Olympics, no comparison Olympics. You want to talk about how much smarter your kid or cuter your kid or blonder your kid is than mine? Great. You do you. I'm go over here. See you never. At least with that. Maybe not entirely cut someone out, but and then just again, being really nice to yourself, like trusting your gut, being a good friend to yourself. Would you allow somebody to talk about one of your friends the way you talk about you? Think about that, like literally think about that and being mindful of like how you speak to yourself. Really important, right? Like comparing yourself to others is actually a bad thing. It is in no way helpful for you. If it's not going to be in a measured, like I said, that competitive piece can be helpful, but if you're not doing it in a way like that, let it go, let it go, right? We don't know what's ahead in the future. All we can do is prepare the best we can, get excited about the things that make us passionate, send out love to other people, right? Something else too, there was a quote, well, a lot of people say this. I don't know who is the first person who said it. So I can't give credit to one person, but like past you, think about past you, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 10-year-old you, like, would they be really pumped to see the things that you're doing? Like, if I can be really honest, like, oh, wow, you have a podcast, you have sponsors on your podcast, you have, which by the way, that's probably a good time to take a break. And so we can get a word from our sponsors. No, that would be awkward now, but yeah, like 10-year-old me would be like, she's doing what? Which of course, obviously there's a lot of technology involved here. So 1995, a lot of this would have happened, but like, it's important to think about those things. And again, I know I sound like I'm your number one biggest cheerleader over here, but I mean, If you can't love yourself, how are you gonna love somebody else, right? So you got to love you first. And that is important to think about. Like, and if you maybe don't feel like that's an accurate thing, then that is something that you can think about for yourself with your own goals. But your past you, like where you are now is where you wanted to be at some point. And maybe you still have future goals, which is great. But past you would be proud of you right now, right? And if you do think about something like writing things down, it's helpful to see like probably doing better than you thought you were doing. Maybe you're just letting all of this negative self-talk in so much that that's shutting it down, right? Like, oh, it's all negative. Oh, it's terrible. And it's like, oh no, I did do that. Again, picking up. I did do that. Oh, I did do that. Oh, that's right. I am achieving these things, right? And also just really remembering social media is not really real. Like again, I even say I do it myself. Like I don't film my son's meltdowns when he doesn't get his way or is throwing a tantrum. And I certainly, if I were to, I'm not going to post it for everybody. That's not the energy I want to put out there. I don't want to try to humiliate him. It's not helpful. It's not like, that's not bringing anything. So if you do look at mine, it is, I guess you could say it's curated for all the positive, but it's curated for the positive because that's the energy that I want to share, not because I'm trying to put out, everyone look how perfect my family is. We're so perfect. Aren't we wonderful? No. Right. And it's just reminding yourself that you deserve to be happy. And this is so hard. Austin and I watch Queer Eye a lot. And it's like the recurring theme for every single episode is like, hey, did you know that you're allowed to be happy? I know that sounds really like, yeah, dumb egg, but like people don't know that. Do you know that? Do you know that you're allowed to be happy? Do you know that you can do things for yourself? I feel like some people don't know that. I know sometimes I don't like internalize that. There are times where it's like, no, it's okay. It's a good thing for me to be selfish in a good way, right? And it's a good thing for me to do that. And like I said, the Queer Eye fellas, like, or well, the Queer Eye people are saying like, you deserve to be happy. You deserve this that we are doing for you because you do for other people and you are achieving these things that you want to have done. And it's okay to be happy. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be happy. Maybe a nice little mantra for you. My other mantra is no one died. Because it's like, things aren't perfect. No one died. We're all going to get into the next day and it's going to be fine. But it's okay to be happy. That's how I'm going to end that today. And I hope you all have a lovely day. And remember, it's okay to be happy.